let's get into this, folks. A little bit of controversy. You know, the controversy out here. The thing that you can't talk about. We got to talk about it a little bit because it's making a lot of noise on Twitter yesterday. The NFL just released new COVID-19 protocols, and not everybody is happy, folks. And, rightfully so. And I just want to preface it by saying this. The biggest kind of, pushback that you get on this, well, the NFL is a private business, and, private businesses can do whatever they want. Yes, you have freedom of speech by the Constitution, but, hey, these are private businesses. They can do whatever they want. And, yes, I agree with that in principle. These are private businesses. They can run it however they want. They can, have, you all have to wear button-up shirts and speak proper, and, you can't talk out of line. I get all that, folks. It is a private business. You've probably earned the right to run the business that way. We all know you could have possibly been born into generational wealth, and maybe you knew somebody that got you the spot, and that could have happened as well. But we'll take it as, you earned your right to run this business. You built this business yourself, and you have the right to run it however you want. I understand the principle behind that. But when you're talking about, organizations and companies that, have these kind of, hey, there's no talking out. You're not allowed to have your own opinion out here. You have to follow it to a T. There's really kind of no freedom of speech here. You can't really talk out of line, or we're going to let you go. But just that isn't American then. You know what I mean? And I know there's extremes to everything. You can't just, go, work for a company and be racist on Twitter, because that's definitely going to hurt the image of the company. And I would, that's fine for those companies to fire you for that. But I mean, if you're just having an opinion about medical advice, I mean, you're just having your opinion, your say out there. That doesn't harm anybody. I don't think that you should be punished by that by your company, because once again, that's just un-American. We have the Constitution for a reason. We are the most free, open country in the world, folks. I mean, that is, the American dream. We have country music celebrating America all the time for those principles. So the fact that, these companies can just be like, yeah, we don't really have to follow that. It's just like, yeah, you don't, but you should be. This is America. This is why, this is the greatest country on earth. Because we have this Constitution. We have, hey, you could say whatever you want, as long as it's really not harming anybody, as long as, you're not starting a riot or anything like that, which most of us, we aren't. We're just kind of like, hey, we have a little questions out here. We want to question it because we're trying to get the answers. We're trying to, critically think and be like, all right, yes, you're telling us this one thing, but what about this fact? Because everybody's just skipping over this fact and not addressing this fact, and we have questions about this fact. So what is going on with that fact? Because if you're all not addressing this fact and overlooking this fact and saying this fact doesn't really mean anything, or this fact, you don't have to worry about that. It's like, well, why? We're just trying. Everyone just wants to get better and learn and know the full extent. We want all the information. And when people kind of, gatekeep information by saying you can't even talk about this, and if you do, you're fired, and if you do talk about it, you're off the team, you're off the job, anything like that, it's like, well, doesn't that just kind of give that fact that we all can't talk about a little bit more credence? I don't know if credence is the right word I'm looking for. It always pops in my head when I'm kind of discussing this. I'm like, I feel like, what does credence mean? I might as well just look it up. That's what we like to do on the show, question our own narratives. So let's look at the credence definition. Like when I think of the word credence, I'm like, the credit, the weight behind something. So here we go, credence. Belief in or acceptance of something as true. Yeah, wasn't that a small side table? Oh, no, I meant to as this definition. A small side table or shelf or niche in a church for holding elements of the Eucharist before they are a credence table. That's what I'm looking for. A credence table. Belief in or acceptance of something as true. Yeah, that would just kind of, if we can't talk about this and you say, hey, if you talk about this one fact right here, you're off. You can't talk about that. But why? That, once again, it increases the credence behind that, the weight to put that is actually true if we all can't talk about it. So why is everything getting censored all of a sudden? Why are we having censorship? I don't believe in any censorship. You should be able to say whatever you want. If it's so outrageous, if it's so blatantly offensive, then we can all just ignore it and it would go away. But if you bring attention to it, you can cancel it. I mean, everybody loves to say, you know, oh, cancel this business because they support. Going back to like the cake. This was big news. The bakery that refused to make a gay cake for a gay couple. It's like, once again, it's a private business, so once again, they can do whatever they want, but it's a little un-American, and if it's truly that absurd, then you could just cancel them and not give them your business and let them fail. That is a possibility. That is just kind of the essence of how everything should work in theory. Once again, in theory, you know, businesses should be able to, you know, just be like, hey, you know, these are our rules. You can't really talk out of turn. We don't really want you voicing your opinion online or anywhere, or we're going to have you fired. Like, yeah, in theory, that it sounds good, but in real practice in America, I don't really love it. So that's all we're just saying right off the rip, folks. I mean, any censorship is bad censorship because it's just a slippery slope. I mean, they took the president off of Twitter, folks. This is the president, the ruler of our country. You may not agree. I don't agree with everything he said, everything he does, obviously. But if you censor the president, I mean, now you can literally have any right to censor anybody else that you want on Twitter, on Facebook, on social media, just in general. I haven't heard from Trump in like ever, folks. I mean, I don't even know what this man is doing now. They have completely erased this man from any sort of voice, which is never great. Was he right about some things? I'm sure he was right about a couple of things. Everything? No. No, not even close. But it just doesn't make sense to censor anybody, because if you're censoring somebody, why? Is it because they're telling you the truth? They're actually saying something that is kind of truthful that you don't want to be said? It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? That's all I want to know. What the hell are we doing out here, folks? Jeez. So let's tie it back into here. Here we go. The NFL released new COVID-19 protocols, and let's just read the official memo so we get the official wording, so we get the official information out here. So here we go. Subject line, 2021 COVID-related operating principles from Roger Goodell. Oh boy, what does he got to say? So here we go. This will summarize key operating principles relating to addressing the continuing COVID-19 threat for the 2021 season. We will review these principles and related matters on the 32 Club call this evening. These principles are based on last season's experience and follow discussions that we have had with a number of league committees, medical experts, outside advisors, and many of you. As we learned last year, we can play a full season if we maintain a firm commitment to adhering to our health and safety protocols and to making needed adjustments in response to changing conditions. These operating principles are designed to allow us to play a full season in a safe and responsible way and address possible competitive or financial issues fairly. While there is no question that health conditions have improved from last year, we cannot be complacent or simply assume that we will be able to play without interruption, either due to COVID outbreaks among our clubs or outbreaks that occur within the larger community. These principles are intended to help inform decisions, recognizing that, as in 2020, we will need to remain flexible and adapt to possibly changing conditions. Here we go, medical principles. Bullet points here. Here we go. The first one. We will maintain our focus on health and safety, with the well-being of everyone associated with our game remaining our highest priority. Bullet point number 2. Nearly all clubs have vaccinated 100% of their Tier 1 and Tier 2 staffs. Clubs have put appropriate protocols in place for the relatively few staff who have not been vaccinated, consistent with the guidance given last April. As of today, more than 75% of players are in the process of being vaccinated, and more than half the clubs have vaccination rates greater than 80% of their players. And once again, when we're talking about, Tier 1 status, that's, being around the players on the field, and then tier 2 is like you can be in the booth, but you can't be on the field, you can't be near players. So once again, kind of forcing the coaching staff to do that. They weren't mandating players to get vaccinated, but they were kind of mandating personnel, coaching staff, because they said, hey, if you're not going to get vaccinated, you're going to lose your tier 1, tier 2 status, and you're not going to be able to be near the players, and you're going to have to be in the booth, not on the field. So it's like, how can we coach from up there? It's a little tough. Bullet point number 3. We know the vaccines are safe and effective and are the best step anyone can take to be safe from the coronavirus. The vaccines continue to provide strong immunity against variants of the coronavirus, including the Delta variant. Even with the recent increase, new cases remain far below the peak levels of earlier this year. Both the CDC and major hospital systems throughout the country have reported that 97% or more of the new cases and virtually all hospitalizations are seen in unvaccinated individuals. Interesting there. While there have been, quote, breakthrough infection cases where a vaccinated individual has been infected, those cases tend to be mild and people recover from the infection relatively quickly. And that is true. I mean, the vaccine does definitely help with the symptoms of COVID, and that's what the vaccine was meant to do. I mean, once again, this is just what I've been seeing. The facts that I have been seeing with the information, let me say the information that I've been seeing, because I honestly don't even know what's real and what's real or fake anymore. I don't know. But the information that I have been seeing, and once again, I'm just a guy, I'm just a person, I am not medical expert, I am not medical advice. I am just saying, all the information that I have seen, it was never the intention of the vaccine to stop transmission of the virus. That's something that I thought the vaccine was never supposed to do. They weren't even thinking about that when they were making the vaccine, was that they really couldn't just stop transmission. They can stop the symptoms, and that was what was killing everybody from COVID, was the symptoms of it. So it lessened the symptoms. So the fact that, everyone's like surprised, or, they actually quoted these as breakthrough infections of vaccinated people catching COVID. It was like, well, yeah, that's kind of, what the vaccine was intended to kind of do. It wasn't stopping you from getting COVID. It was just lessening your symptoms so you didn't have to go to the hospital and you can very much recover on your own. Once again, we all went into lockdown because we wanted to slow the spread to not overwhelm the hospitals. That was the point of the lockdowns, folks. So the fact that they're calling these, quote, breakthrough infections of vaccinated people catching COVID, I mean, that's what it was. We know this is what's going to be happening. So, once again, just kind of making it, all bad on unvaccinated people, I just don't agree with that logic of thinking, that line of logical thinking. I don't agree with that. But let's continue here with the article, or the memo. Another bullet here. If a vaccinated person tests positive and is asymptomatic, he or she will be isolated and contact tracing will promptly occur. The positive individual will be permitted to return to duty after 2 negative tests at least 24 hours apart and will thereafter be tested every 2 weeks or as directed by medical staffs. Vaccinated individuals will not be subject to quarantine as a result of close contact with an infected person. Bullet point, the next one. If an unvaccinated person tests positive, the protocols from 2020 will remain in effect. The person will be isolated for a period of 10 days and will then be permitted to return to duty if asymptomatic. Unvaccinated individuals will continue to be subject to a 5-day quarantine period if they have close contact with an infected individual. Now, this is where all the kind of fuss is being made with NFL players, and we're going to hear from DeAndre Hopkins in a second. But it's like, why are we making this big difference between vaccinated and unvaccinated if the vaccine only is supposed to lessen your symptoms? Then why are we kind of villainizing the unvaccinated? if the vaccine doesn't slow the spread, then vaccinated and unvaccinated people can still spread the virus. And that was kind of, once again, going back to the lockdowns of last year. That was the point of the lockdown. We didn't know if you were asymptomatic. We didn't know if you were not showing symptoms, but you could still spread it. And I think that's been debunked. I think, once again, I don't know what is fact, what is fake anymore, just because everybody is having their facts. Like, I'm hearing from doctors this way, and they're both doctors. It's like, they're both doctors. You're always supposed to listen to doctors. I'm listening to some doctors, a good majority of doctors. And we're getting a little conflicting information, which just makes it annoying, because now we've got two sides of the fence, and it's like, oh, you better pick your team, and you're going to be villainized one way or the other, and it's real annoying out here that we can't have just a discussion. Why has there been no debate? Why have all these doctors have all these different points of views and all these different conclusions and all these different ways to treat the COVID-19, but we don't have a big debate? Wouldn't you think that would be like the best way to determine who's actually true, pointing out, hey, all right, yeah, this is where you're getting your information from? Well, let me tell you why this is why we shouldn't be, looking at this information truly closely. Or on the flip side, hey, this is why we're looking at this information closely. You should probably look at it closely like this, because this fact backs it up, and this is what the study actually did. So why are we not getting that? Why are we not having discussions? I mean, what the heck? Why do I have to go to Joe Rogan's podcast to have actual meaningful, thoughtful discussions? Because I heard two doctors on that show say, hey, if you use, I don't even know if I want to say the medication, because YouTube, I'm sure I'm going to get struck on this one as well. I've already probably said something wild, which I don't think I did. But once again, what did I say at the start of this? Can't have a discussion. But, the people on Joe Rogan's podcast who are medical professionals and had an open dialogue and discussion said, hey, if you take this medication, and it's not hydroxychloroquine, it is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the IV, Iverb, I don't want to say it. I don't know what they got. But that medication, they said, hey, 100%. If you take that medication on the first sign that you have COVID, you will 100% recover. 100%, they were saying. They have studies. They have, the medical studies, the double-blind placebo, and at 100%, if you took that medication at the first sign of COVID, you were fine 100%. If you, obviously, the earlier you took it, the better it worked. And even, if you took it late, it was still very, very high percentage, like high 80s, low 90% that you would be fine if you took that medication. So it's like, what are we doing? Can we just have this discussion, an open discussion? Can we talk about this? Because nobody's even talking about this treatment option. Everyone wants to rush to a vaccine. Why is that? Just ask why. Why? That's why. That's all I want to know. Why? Because when everybody gets on the same page, just like that, makes me a little worried. Let's continue here. All right. All right. Next bullet. Here we go. Persons who had a previous COVID infection will be considered fully vaccinated 14 days after they had at least one dose of an approved vaccine. What? 14 days after they have at least one dose? That's interesting. A previous COVID infection. So that's another thing. Once you had COVID, isn't it kind of like, once you have the flu? Or no, once you have, like not the flu, because that changes every year. Well, I guess all these variants, the COVID is changing. But, once you have, an infection, a disease, you don't get that again because you have the antibodies to fight it. So, if you have the antibodies of COVID, why are we still, rushing everybody to get the vaccine? You know what I mean? Just want to know. Once again, we don't know because nobody is having open conversations. And, Dr. Fauci just had a hearing the other day. Man, it kind of seemed like he was lying a little bit. Rand Paul calling him out. From what I heard, it kind of seemed like Fauci was lying a little bit about the gain of function. But That's just what I'm hearing, folks, what I'm seeing. The information that I'm hearing, that I'm seeing. I'm seeing all the information. I'm taking it all in, folks. I'm sponging it up. I'm seeing everything. What everybody is ever saying, I'm seeing, all right, I see this. I'm weighing these. All right, I'm putting more credits into this and then to that. And this is my conclusion that I come up with. Just what the hell is going on here? So, once again, we're not medical advice. We are not medical doctors. I am a guy that talks about sports, folks. Please. I'm just saying, like, let's have a dialogue. Let's have a discussion. Let's think about this logically. Can we just go step by step logically throughout the entire thing? I've been doing this for the entire 2 years that we've been under COVID. It's like, I'm just trying to follow the most logical line of thinking out here, folks. Back to the bullet points here. Next one. We will remain in close contact with medical and public health authorities at all levels of government, as well as with our own medical advisors in the NFLPA, and will communicate. This is blacked out, so I don't know what that's about, but that's blacked out. We will communicate any blank promptly. So I don't know why they mark that off, but that's interesting. All right, competitive principles. Here we go. Bullet point number 1 of competitive principles. The league will make every responsible effort consistent with underlying health and safety protocols to complete the full 272-game regular season within the current 18 weeks and all postseason games as scheduled in a safe and responsible way. This is grounded in a commitment to players, coaches, fans, and business partners. We do not anticipate adding a 19th week to accommodate games that cannot be rescheduled within the current 18 weeks of the regular season. Bullet point number 2. Every club is obligated under the Constitution and bylaws to have its team ready to play at the scheduled time and place. A failure to do so is deemed conduct detrimental. There is no right to postpone a game. Postponements will only occur if required by government authorities, medical experts, or the commissioner's discretion. Next bullet point. In light of the substantial roster flexibility in place for the 2021 season, absent medical considerations or government directives, games will not be postponed or rescheduled simply to avoid roster issues caused by injury or illness affecting multiple players, even within a position group. Next bullet. If a game is canceled or postponed because a club cannot play due to a COVID spike among or resulting from its non-vaccinated players or staff, then the burden of cancellation or delay will fall on the club experiencing the COVID infection. We will seek to minimize the burden on the opposing club or clubs. If a club cannot play due to a COVID spike in vaccinated individuals, we will attempt to minimize the competitive and economic burden on both participating teams. This is kind of the big one here that a lot of people are getting, a little upset with. They're putting all the blame on unvaccinated players, but the vaccinated players can still catch it. So why are we kind of, we're getting close to the point of truly segregation on vaccinated and unvaccinated people, but it doesn't make any sense because both parties can spread and contract the COVID-19. We've seen it. Maybe, I don't know if there's truly information about vaccinated people spreading COVID, but vaccinated people can still get COVID. I think. Let me say I think. I think they can still spread it. I'm not 100% certain on that. Like I said, I'm just speaking of what I have been seeing. And I don't know if there's been any confirmed cases of vaccinated spreading to other vaccinated. I'm not 100% sure on that. So we're vilifying unvaccinated people. And there's a lot of people on Twitter and social media, and it's just this is just truly disheartening when I see this. Everyone's like, doing your own research is actually bad for you, and coming up to your own conclusions is actually bad in this case. I'm like, no, it's really not. And I know we're talking about, health and safety of the entire population. And I get that, folks. It's bigger than one person. It's bigger than just one community, one organization, one anything. I get all that. But at the end of the day, when you say, hey, you can't do your own research on this topic, it's once again, it's like, why are we censoring? You should be critically thinking on everything that has ever happened to you in your entire life. You should be critically thinking, especially when it comes to government and all that. It's like, there's been some instances where the government hasn't been entirely truthful. So it's like, yeah, we're going to take everything with the big grain of salt here and critically think this entire thing out. And everything just seems to be real weird the last 2 years. So I just don't know, folks. Let's continue it out here. We got a couple more bullets to go over. Here we go. Next bullet up. Whether to reschedule a postponed game will be dependent on health and safety reasons at the recommendation of medical experts, as well as considerations of stadium availability, schedule integrity, fan convenience, and other appropriate matters. Another bullet. If a game cannot be rescheduled within current 18-week schedule and is canceled due to a COVID outbreak among non-vaccinated players on one of the competing teams, the club with the outbreak will forfeit the contest and will be deemed to have played 16 games for purposes of draft, waiver priority, etc. So once again, if they're if they're unvaccinated and they cause all this, they're getting penalized. For the purpose of playoff seeding, the forfeiting team will be credited with a loss and other team will be credited with a win. Financial principles. Yeah, let's quickly go through these. Bullet 1. If a game is rescheduled due to a COVID outbreak among unvaccinated players on one of the competing teams, the club experiencing the outbreak will be responsible for all additional expenses incurred by the opposing team and will also be required to pay any shortfall between actual and expected payment for the VTS pool. So once again, penalizing the unvaccinated, making it an incentive to get vaccinated. Yes, it's not mandatory, but the burden's going to fall on y'all. And then that's going to go from the owners because the owners are like, hey, we're not paying this money. And that just gets trickled down to the players. Once again, not forcing, but making incentives and decentives each way, which... Once again, it's the NFL. They can do whatever they want. They're a private business. But once again, it's like, is this truly American at this one point? You know what I mean? That's what I'm just saying. It's like, yes, y'all can do whatever you want. It's your business. It's your league. Yes, you can do this. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, man, oh man. It's like, it's not American, folks. It's not the Constitution. It's not. I just don't like the loopholes that everyone's trying to navigate. I don't agree. I personally, takes by fans, I don't agree. Back to a bullet. If a game cannot be rescheduled within the current 18-week schedule and is canceled due to a COVID outbreak among unvaccinated players on one of the competing teams, that club will forfeit the contest and will be responsible for the lost payment to the VTS pool. So once again, we're not going to, I kind of want to keep going here, but it's just basically, hey, if you're unvaccinated and you cause the COVID, you're responsible for everything. If you're vaccinated and you cause COVID, well, unfortunate, you don't have to pay. We'll work best with you than the unvaccinated. That's basically what the memo was saying. And then we had people sound off. DeAndre Hopkins, he was not happy about it. Let's kind of get into this article really quickly. DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best wide receivers in the league. So here we go. The NFL's new policy. The NFL's new policy caused ripples throughout the league, with players reacting to the news on social media and at training camps. Hopkins' now deleted tweet read, quote, "Never thought I would say this, but being in a position to hurt my team because I don't want to partake in the vaccine is making me question my future in the NFL." So not everybody's 100% behind this. There are, we heard Cole Beasley speak out against this. He's not all about this. So it's just like, these people are having rational thought out here and want to get because we don't even know where it came from, folks. And it's not, you couldn't even talk about that. You couldn't even talk about that. It leaked from a lab in China, from the Wuhan virology lab, in the beginning of it. But now a year later, it's like, yeah, that's a possibility. In hindsight, that was a possibility. We're not going to investigate it that much, but it could have came from there. But, a year ago, it's like, hey, no, it didn't. It never came from there. If you thought that, I don't even know, you're a conspiracy theorist if you ever think it could even come from there. It 100% did not come from there. A year later, it may be. It could have. Most likely, probably did. But it's like we got that a year later. What's next year? You know what I mean? So everyone just get off your high horse. That's all I'm going to say there. Get off your high horse. Get off your virtue signaling high horse. I'm seeing some of the sports people that I only really look up to one sports person, and I'm even seeing him kind of, be like virtue signaling a lot, and it's like I don't even care if y'all listen to my opinions or not, folks. I'm not even saying my opinions and my thoughts are the end all be all. They're not. To question everything. Look up everything. Literally. Everything that I'm saying on my stats of what I hold kind of true and what I hold as, what I hold in higher regards than other things. Question that. Go look up that, folks. I mean, look and question everything. Literally everything. So DeAndre Hopkins tweeted that, and then he later tweeted, quote, "By the way, I got about 9 years in me. Y'all have a good day." So, he's gonna be playing. We know this, but, he's just having a thought, and you can't even have a thought. You can't even, question. And that's what that's what we're taught to do in school, folks. That's what at least I was taught. Critical thinking. That was like what we learned in like second grade. Critical thinking. Thinking, getting all the information, seeing the sources, weighing every single piece of information on a scale of, like, let's just say 100. All right, I weigh this like 80% truth. I weigh this maybe 20. Maybe I don't put that much stake into it. But this 100. I mean, oh man, this. I put 100% stake in this. What I'm seeing, and then I go back and reevaluate. The 80 out of the 100. Now that I had this 100 out of 100. Well, probably not even 100 out of 100 because I'm not giving 100% faith into anything. Most probably 99%. But then you go and just reevaluate, and you're constantly reevaluating everything that you're seeing, and it's just like you can't even do that here. And that's all I want to do. I just want to critically evaluate everything that I've been seeing. So DeAndre Hopkins didn't like it. Jalen Ramsey spoke out. He said, I know 2 people right now who got the vaccine but are COVID positive. We've been hearing stories. I mean, the Democrats, they were on a plane or something, and then they all caught COVID, and they were all vaccinated. So it's like, once again, it's like we're getting vaccinated people are catching the COVID. So Jalen Ramsey, I know 2 people right now who got the vaccine but are COVID positive. I'm just saying I wouldn't look at a teammate as bad if he didn't get the vax. No pressure from number 5, his New Jersey number. So it's like, once again, we're villainizing people for not, like, everyone on Twitter. It's like, if you don't have the vaccine on Twitter, you are the devil. You should be put to death. You should be sentenced to death. So I'm just not the biggest fan of that thinking.